put together, or I put together this great panel today that to me is one of the most interesting groups of all the panels we've done in terms of some careers that you may not have thought of necessarily before. We've got some entrepreneurs, we've got people, well, you'll hear all about them. And so what we're going to do is I'm just going to ask each person to introduce themselves and just talk a little bit about what do they do, where do they work, and maybe some of their story of how they get from where you are at SDSU to their positions of where they are today. So that'll be my first question. Then I'll ask just sort of general career advice, and then anyone else can ask questions because they're here to share their expertise and knowledge and their views on what it's taken. So I will go just alphabetically, which means David, you'll be first.
Right.
And we'll just sort of go around. And so, yeah, just introduce yourself, share, your story.
Yeah, so my name is David Brickley. I'm the owner and CEO of STN Digital. We're a social first marketing agency. I graduated SDSU back in 2009 as a journalism major. And essentially when I went to SDSU, I wanted to be a sports broadcaster. So my goal was to be on SportsCenter or have my own radio show. So shortly after college, I moved.
I think David is frozen on us. Give him a moment here, the awkward frozen stage. Well, we'll wait for David to come back. And in the meantime, I'm sure he'll be back in a minute. We'll switch it up and go over to Josh, I think would be the next in line. And then once David comes back, he can rejoin and he can go after you, Josh.
Hi, everyone. Well, like David, I went to San Diego State and I wanted to work in sports, and I've been fortunate enough that I have been able to work in sports. I've done a lot of different things. I don't know if I would recommend that people follow my path because I've bounced from print to radio to TV and gone back and forth and done a variety of things. Currently, what I do now is I'm the play-by-play announcer for a minor league baseball team, the Albuquerque Isotopes. They are affiliated with the Colorado Rockies. It's the highest level of minor league baseball before the majors. And then basically I got furloughed during the pandemic. And so I moved to Reno because I needed a free place to live. And I moved in with my mom and I broadcasted for the University of Nevada women's basketball and baseball teams. And in fact, later today, I'll be flying to San Diego because Nevada plays the Aztecs this weekend in baseball. And I'll be broadcasting those games for Nevada. And then in a few weeks, I'll head back to Albuquerque at the start of the minor league baseball season. But I spent 10 years at a newspaper at the Oakland Tribune. And I worked in Los Angeles. I did some work for the Dodgers on their pre and post game shows. I've written some books, some podcasts. Again, I bounce all over the place. It'd be very easy for people to just say, bro, pick one thing and stick with it. But I keep changing what I'm doing for a variety of reasons. But that's sort of the nutshell of what I do.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Josh. And David, we'll return back to you.
I don't know where I lost you guys, but yeah, so real quick. So my name is David Brickley, owner and CEO of STN Digital. We're a social first marketing agency. We work with clients like Amazon, Nike, a lot really in the sports and entertainment space. And again, a little bit about me. I graduated in 2009 as a journalism major. I wanted to be a sports broadcaster like on SportsCenter or have my own radio show. So I moved on to Fox Sports Radio for 3.5 years as a producer. I really wanted my own radio show and own opportunity. I didn't think I was getting it quick enough. So I went in 2011, I started my own YouTube channel. So I would use the Fox Sports Radio studios overnight to really host my show on YouTube. That started to pick up a little bit of steam, and I had an idea. I wanted to pitch Kobe Bryant and his team about a weekly Kobe Minute, which would be a video I hosted and was really about his on the court and off the court successes. Kobe and his team loved it. So back in 2013, 2012, started making videos for Kobe. Those videos would get like 300, 400,000 views, as you can imagine, on his social media. And that was the epiphany. At that point, I'm like, hey, if I can work for Kobe, why can't I work with other athletes or other sports teams or other brands? and in April 2013 started STN, and now we're at, you know, over 50 employees, and it's been an awesome ride.
Cool. Thank you. Patricia.
Hi, I'm Patricia, and I don't know anything about sports. It's not my realm.
I'll help you out. I got you.
You two have got it covered for me. I do work in tech, however, and you can too with a journalism degree. Go figure. So I do a type of product design that's called user experience content design. Basically, what that is any app or piece of software that you use, it's the words that you see on the screen. So think about Facebook, Instagram, Google, Apple. They all have huge user experience design teams. Content design, they do not teach in school. All of us have journalism or English degrees, and we all just kind of worked our way in there. So, and you know, even more testament to this, my intern this summer, San Diego State student from the journalism school. So I know it sounds like pretty out there, and you're like, I don't know anything about product design. What is tech? What is this space? Like, there's totally a space for being a competent writer within tech. How I got there, I started off in print journalism, have my journalism degree, local magazine, worked at an art museum doing their marketing, got laid off, was heartbroken, and was like, I'll show them. So I wound up in biotech. To like, it was like my art school boyfriend broke up with me. I was like, I'm gonna date a doctor. So I went into biotech. Did not enjoy it a lot, but I learned about what product development is, what is user experience design, learned enough of the right words to be able to interview well when a recruiter from Intuit called me. And that's where I work now. I've been there for almost 5 years, worked my way up from contractor to now a senior designer, building my own team. You can see TurboTax, we make Credit Karma, Mint, TurboTax, QuickBooks. Yeah, so that's me.
Awesome. Thank you, Patricia. And Gissel.
Hi, I'm Gissel, and like Patricia, I'm also in tech, which is odd for a journalism major. But basically, I'm an content SEO specialist at Slickdeals. I've only been there for 2 months, but prior to that, I was the SEO content specialist at Experian, and I was there for over 2 years, basically just like implementing their SEO and content strategy. How I got there is after graduating from SDSU as a media studies major back in 2016, I was just more of like a content writer, writing like social media blog posts, UX, user experience, copywriting, more blogs. But I noticed that my blogs weren't really getting a lot of organic traffic. Like they were being used for social media and like lead gen purposes, but not really like for the organic channel. So that's where I kind of saw an opportunity for me to kind of bridge that gap between journalism majors and more tech SEO. So that's basically what I did. And once Experian reached out to me and offered me a job, I kind of just grew my career from there.
Cool. Thank you. And now we'll go back to David, and based on your career so far, what are any lessons you've learned, or just like general advice for students as they transition into their first job?
Yeah, a couple of things. I think for me, one of our first clients was the New England Patriots and Green Bay Packers. And I think the number one question I got back then was, does your uncle work there? Like, I don't understand. How do you get that connection? And, we made an Excel sheet. We put all 32 NFL teams on it. We researched on Google who the point of contacts were, emailed all 32, 6 of them got on calls, 3 of them asked for proposals, and 1 of them said yes. So I think, especially for students, there's unfortunately this self-limiting belief that I can never have my first job be at this company, or I don't have enough, of a resume to be able to apply for this job, or I can never work with the NFL team. I haven't even worked with, a small mom and pop shop yet. And I think just kind of having that I guess belief really allowed me to grow pretty quickly and be able to kind of go for my dreams and goals. So that's the one thing that comes to mind. And the second, I will say, just from a CEO standpoint, we get 300 applicants every time we open up a job. So it's really difficult to stand out. But the people that have stood out to me, like they make custom videos. I asked one question in a marketing interview, what would you do in your first 90 days? Most people wrote back a paragraph of what they would do. One person put together a 57-page deck. I hired that person. So I really think, if you're willing to go quality over quantity about jobs you guys really love and careers you really want to get into, and you're willing to put in 16 hours to kind of like put yourself, at the very top of that resume pile, I found, at least in my experience, that is definitely worth the time, rather than, I made the mistake, the spray and pray approach, where you apply to 150 jobs and it just ultimately you're not able to stand out. So those are the two things that come to mind for me.
Cool. Thank you. Josh, what about for you?
I'd follow up on a lot of the similar things that David said. I was nodding my head as he was saying those things. I think that a lot of times when applying for a job, a lot of us get nervous about, am I hounding them too much? Am I bothering them too much? Am I having too many people reach out on my behalf? Oh wait, I called 2 days ago and I got a voicemail. Should I email 3 days later? Should I wait a week and all that? And I think that's natural, but I think you need to believe in yourself and pursue yourself getting a job the same way that you pursue a story. Hopefully that's something that you've learned at San Diego State, is how dogged you have to be as a reporter to get the story. Use that same dogged approach to get a job. Maybe someone like David's like, well, this person's annoying me because they've contacted me 50 times, but either way, you didn't have the job. So I think keep pursuing the jobs that you want and going after the types of gigs that you want, whatever your line of work is, until somebody says, okay, we got it. We'll get back to you if we're interested in you. So again, just pursue the job with the same determination as you pursue sources in order to get a story to put out the best journalism you can.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. Patricia, what do you think?
That was all really good advice. Starting off, I want to echo what David started off. It's like that fake it till you make it thing. It's like, it's so true. Like, it's very common to deal with imposter syndrome, even as you get older, like, oh, they would never hire me, or, oh, I don't belong there. But that exact mentality that David touched on is just like, just do it, just go for it. Why not? And getting rid of that fear and self-doubt is huge. And a really awesome lesson if you can like learn it earlier on in your career. In terms of standing out when I'm interviewing people, is mostly like grit and passion. Even if you don't know anything about UX design, if I can tell that you've chased something down before, you know what failure feels like, and you would only know what failure is if you've tried really, really hard at something. It's less of like, do you have exactly the skills I'm looking for, and more of just like, are you a fast learner? Do you move quickly? Can you like really get passionate and engaged about something, and trying to just figure out how you think? So know that even in interviews where you're like, oh, I gave the wrong answer, it's not so much like exactly the words you say, it's just sort of your personality coming across and trying to find those intangibles. And then sort of the flip side of what they were saying about, go after the job you want. Also leave the job you don't want. Know that you can do so much with your degree. Being able to take a ton of information and distill it down is applicable, as you've learned, to so many different career paths. If you're, working at a life insurance agency, writing blogs, and you're like, oh my God, I've never been so bored, you can do so much more with your degree. So in that chasing down your career, know that like you have options for sure.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Gissel, what about you?
So they all had really good advice. My advice is a little different, because I actually I applied to my first internship while I was still at SDSU, and I haven't applied for a job ever since. Basically, I utilize LinkedIn to the best of my ability, and I use SEO for that too. So I get about 2 recruiters a week reaching out to me from the moment I left SDSU to now. And so my advice is, yes, brush up on those skills and update your LinkedIn, because when recruiters go to look for it, that's what they're looking for. They're looking for skills. Once you go into the interview process, yes, your personality is going to come through and your passion will come through, but you got to get your foot in the door first, and that's brushing up on those skills. And just as an example, I didn't know anything about SEO. I knew what tools I wanted to learn, and so I asked my manager if I could have some budget to kind of learn those tools. And he said yes. And so I went and I learned on my own. And then once I did, I updated my LinkedIn. So when a recruiter was looking for someone who knew how to use SEM Rush or Hrefs, my profile was always coming up for them. So that's my advice, is utilize LinkedIn to the best way that you can, and always keep it updated whenever you can.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So we'll open it up for students. Raise your hand if you're brave and want to speak. You can drop questions in the chat as well if you want. One other question I had, so we'll go around one more time and then we'll lose the structure. Is just a little bit more about what you do now. So if you could just sort of describe, a typical day or week, or what are sort of the things that you work on every day, let's say. So Dave, if you want to lead us off one more time.
Yeah, so STM, we're a social first marketing agency. So we do a lot, pretty much anything under the digital marketing umbrella. So a lot of what we do is full social media management, A to Z. So think copywriting, all the content, all the analytics, all the paid media, running like the Instagram handles, Twitter handles, Facebook, TikTok, for like a Nike or an Amazon Sports, a Fox Sports, NBC Sports, things like that. So on a day-to-day basis, I have, like I said, about a team of 50. I have, 5 in my executive team: production, social media, paid media, HR, finance, some of those different departments, and just kind of making sure I touch base with them. But yeah, like I said, anything from on-site activations to commercial development, like we just do marketing at the end of the day. So we're, having fun just working with our clients and making sure we, all their big initiatives that we're helping them and showing up for it.
Cool. Josh, what about you?
Well, so again, this weekend I'll be in San Diego at Tony Gwynn Stadium for a 3-game baseball series. Because of COVID, they've changed the format of games. So there's a doubleheader on Saturday. So that makes for a really long day. That means I'm at the ballpark about 10 a.m. The first game starts at 1. The second game starts about 45 minutes after the first game ends. So a lot of the things that I do in advance is to try to get I'm constantly researching. I'm constantly trying to learn about the new opponents and about our team. One thing that I think that it took me a little bit longer to realize as a hardcore journalism major, I was always thinking about journalism. Once you start working for a university, it's all about selling the school or selling the sport. And so you don't want to, there's a fine line between being what we call a homer, who's always just painting the picture of everything is great, but just, you can still sell the sport, sell the team, sell what's happening with the university in ways that don't necessarily have to reflect on whether the team is winning or losing. What I've also been doing is making sure that I have lots of content ready between games of the doubleheader, so that I can take my headphones off and I can go to the bathroom and I can get something to eat and get ready for the second game. So just try to have all of my research ready so that as soon as I get to the ballpark, I'm ready to go. If I arrive Saturday at 10 a.m. and I'm just starting my research, I'm in deep trouble. I need to have all of my research done and ready to go. I've got 3 games, which is 27 innings in about 27 hours. So I need to be ready to go as soon as I step on foot at the baseball field Saturday.
Cool. Thank you, Josh. Patricia, what about you?
Yeah, so I'm running a little team now. So what I'm doing nowadays is a little bit different and more around, systemizing designs and making sure my people are in the right places at the right time. So I won't talk so much about that, but I will talk about what a content designer would typically do day in and day out. So content designers, we work really closely with researchers. So everything about design is being customer backed. Everything we do is solving a customer problem. So working really close with researchers who talk to actual customers every day, showing them prototypes, hearing how do they understand the language, do they not understand the language, how can we improve. We're always iterating on our designs based on what we've learned, working really with visual designers and product designers to make our ideas come to life. Yeah, subject matter experts. When I worked on TurboTax before, I don't anymore, but there was always tax experts around that we would have to collaborate with really closely to make sure that our designs are, compliant and factual and helping customers, get through a process as quickly and easily as possible while, feeling confident. Yeah, that's pretty much content design. A lot of documentation, working with engineers. You know what, which sounds scary, but I know a lot of us have grown up doing like minor HTML. I don't know if you ever had like a MySpace page and we're trying to get the stars to follow your cursor. Like there's something sort of like innately millennial about it. So yeah, that's pretty much content design in a nutshell.
Awesome. Thank you. And Giselle.
So my day-to-day is usually, I do a lot of competitive analysis. So I keep track of our competitors, see what they're doing. I do a lot of keyword research, and then I work really closely with the content team, and I basically give them the direction that they need so that they create content from an SEO perspective. And, you know, and then all the on-page SEO stuff, which is like title tags, meta descriptions, and then all the back end stuff. So which is like link building, outreach. So finding partnerships and outreaching so that they could link back to us. And ultimately just, we have to kind of raise our domain authority so that we can rank higher. So that's basically my main focus, is always just making sure that our domain authority is getting the traction that it needs.
Awesome. Thank you. So now is the time where if you have a question, just feel free to raise your hand, drop it in the chat, and we can answer them. I've got lots of questions. I can ask questions all day, but I like to make sure that you all have an opportunity as well. Oh, hey, Parker. Parker just came on camera. What's up?
Yeah, I have a question.
All right, awesome. Take it away.
So a few of us are graduating and we're looking at job applications, interviews. And one of my last interviews, I asked a question. Was there a moment when you hired someone that you knew that you hired like the right person? And Patricia kind of touched on that. She said, yeah, you're looking for someone with grit, someone that can solve problems. And I was wondering if there was any sort of tips or advice on how to portray that quality inside an interview, or, you know, in like the application maybe.
You said my name, so I'm going to talk.
Sure.
Something I like to hear in an interview is hearing the stories of something. So less like, wow, this article is awesome, like you write really well. I would love to hear how difficult was it to get that interview? Were, you know, they super slippery to nail down? Were they kind of a difficult personality? Was your editor, did something come up with your editor? Just sort of hearing your end-to-end journey with a project and getting a glimpse of that hustle, as opposed to just relying on the artifact itself, and not being scared. I mentioned it before, to mention if something didn't go right. You know, if oh, I had this awesome idea, we were building this thing, but like, you know, ultimately this fell through and it was such a bummer, but we did so much work leading up to that point. That's still a really great story. So knowing that it's not just your bright and shiny portfolio that will do all the work, but being able to paint that picture of your passion.
Yeah, I think what I'll say is for us, you know, we kind of get super geeked out over it, where we have a working interview, and that working interview is kind of like exactly what you'd be doing on a normal basis. So that way, if you ace that, it kind of is like the risk reward for us is so much less, because we know, like, Parker, you can hop in right away and do the thing. We also do like predictive index, like, you know, like the disk analysis to kind of see like how you're wired internally and all those different things. So we kind of get really granular with it. But I think Josh can kind of back me up on this, you know, when it comes to play-by-play. You know, I think employers want to just know, have you done it before? So if you're applying to be a social media manager at my company, like, do you have a decent presence on your own social media? Have you ran social media for other companies? Like, can I go look at that and see what you did? And if you haven't done that, I think when you guys are graduating, the reason I brought Josh up is like, you know, I used to give advice, you know, if you want to be a basketball play-by-play announcer, watch the Laker game, put it on mute, and, you know, wear a headset and start calling the game as if you are calling the Laker game, right? So I think the great news is there's so many ways that for $5 you can start your own website. For free, you can launch a social media platform. For $20, you can buy a Logitech headset and do a fake play-by-play game so people can kind of see how good you are at it naturally. So I think just being able to, I mean, Patricia said it earlier, fake it till you make it, but also you can actually put in the work and say, look, like I'm already doing this. So if you hire me, I'm just going to do this to a whole nother level for you. So that's the first thing that came to mind for me.
Thank you.
For me, I would say that, so I hire a lot of interns who help me out. And I like to hire journalism majors just because I was one. And so for me, it's just having an interest. Like I would much rather hire someone who is interested in the subject and wants to learn, because I have that mentorship mentality where I would rather teach you if it's something that you really want to learn. And then someone who has the skills, but probably isn't like as passionate. So I would go for that person over someone who has the skills, but I just didn't really see like a working relationship with that person.
Yeah, I don't hire anyone, but I would just say that just what's your initiative? Show me what you've done in the past that shows your initiative, no matter what that topic is, because initiative can be transferred over to whatever occupation, whatever portion of communications. What have you done in the past that's going to show me what you can do in the future?
Yeah, and I'll add, oh, sorry, go ahead, David.
Just as a quick stat, I think after final interviews, I would say about 15% of people write an email thanking me for my time, which I think is like a really good like core value culture. Like this person is like a nice human for respecting my time. So not that that's a deal breaker, but I would say probably on average, like the person we end up going with probably does those small things like the handwritten note or the email. And again, like I said earlier, any way that you can go above and beyond and stand out in front of the other candidates is definitely worth your time. And you can't do that for 100 jobs, but you can definitely do it for 6 or 7 quality jobs if that's your goal. So.
And I was going to add, based on some of this advice here for you, Parker, specifically, since I know you, and Parker does awesome video stuff, those animation, all that sort of stuff. And you learn that all yourself. You went on YouTube, you figured it out. So that's impressive. So it's not just showing this awesome video you could do. I think, you know, that could be part of your narrative is I know I needed to do this. So I went out and learned it, because that will, you know, to Patricia, all of their points, like, oh, okay, you know, that's what Gissel did. She's like, oh, I need to know SEO. I'm going to go learn SEO. She's going to get it paid for by her company. So that's an even better way to learn new skills. But I think that gets to, you know, trying to distinguish yourself.
Sweet, thank you. I got to go to class now, so.
Yeah. All right. Other questions? See, a few people are on camera, so I don't know if you're.
I'll go ahead and ask a question if you're down. Hi guys, I'm Tyler. I'm a PR major at the school of JMS, and I'm a senior as well. So I know a lot of us are applying to jobs. What kind of stands out in terms of when you initially apply, because you don't get to have that human interaction in terms of showcasing your passion or showcasing that proactiveness. So what stands out to you on maybe a resume or a cover letter that can really amplify that?
For me, it's really difficult to stand out with your resume or cover letter. 90% of it, the cover letter probably won't be read. The resume will slightly be glanced at. I do think, you know, to stand out, there's, again, like a small percentage of people will LinkedIn DM me personally and say, hey, you know, just wanted to say that I did apply for your social media manager role. It'd be a pleasure to work for your company. And just want to let you know I'm excited for this process and hope to continue on in the process. I always forward that to my hiring manager because I feel like it shows that this person is serious. They want to work here. They're not just spraying and praying, like I said before. And it shows that, you know, they're passionate about getting a job here. So again, I think if you can, not just a CEO, but just look at some of the executives at the team and just say like, you know, if I could ever pick your brain, all those different things. But I think touching them in a couple different ways on LinkedIn or on social will definitely put your name in front of the pile, at least in my experience.
For me, I really look at just, again, I have that editor mentality. So if there's any typos, I'll throw it away. But if you have an online portfolio and it's on your resume, I will look at that first. And that's kind of how I'll kind of decide whether I want to interview that person or not. So I think that's mainly the way I think you can stand out, especially starting, and just talk about your experiences at school or internships and what you're passionate about. because we do look at that.
Yeah,
Awesome. Thank
ditto.
you.
That's what I was gonna say. Online portfolio,
Yeah,
like
I
a really
think
sharp, solid one.
I think too, you know, executives are busy, right? So like even on my phone, if I'm like walking to my car and I get an email from you, I don't want to click the PDF and like have it load and like open and look at it. But if it's like, hey, here's a quick hyperlink of a 30-second video of what I'm about and why I'm excited to be at your company, again, you're making it easier for the hiring manager. And then they'll probably just click it and check it out. They might forward it to their colleague, like, hey, how cool is this? Tyler just applied and just made this custom video for us or whatever it may be. So the way you can make it easier, I think the better chances you have for sure.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I'll add on to Giselle is that we'll sometimes get applications for jobs with the wrong university in it because they're just sort of like, it's like, all right, well, you didn't control F and make sure you didn't remove that other university before applying. I'm probably not going to hire you. Other questions?
Do some research about the company that you're applying for. Make sure that if you can find out who the hiring person is, that's ideal, but it's not that hard to go to their website and find out who they are, who their vendors are, and tailor your cover letter to the specific job. Don't have it be a generic cover letter. Make people know that you did the research about their company.
Yeah, it's funny you said, Josh. One question I always ask in interviews is, what is it about STN that made you want to apply, and what do you think we do on a daily basis? And that tells me really quickly if they looked at our social, if they went to our website, if they checked a few case studies out. And I've kind of like stumped a few people in the past that we didn't move forward with. Like, well, obviously you're just applying for a bunch of different jobs, and it's just like you would be fine to work here, but it's not like oh my goodness, I would just love this opportunity. So I totally agree. It's like, do your research, quality over quantity, and it'll show for sure.
Other questions? Juan, you just came off mute.
Yeah. Hey, how you guys doing? My name is Juan Daniel Avila. I'm a journalist major here at SDSU. But this question's for Josh. I'm so glad we have a play-by-play guy here. As one myself, I was just one question, I don't know if I remember hearing it. How early did you start your career doing play-by-play, or is it just something that just came up? You're like, oh, I have a passion for this? Because, for example, me, I've had a passion for it since I was young, since I was a little kid watching soccer games because I'm trying to do soccer. And I was wondering, how do you come up with these chances of calling games out? Because I've done high school, I've done semi-pro teams, but I still haven't evolved into going to that next level, especially this year with the pandemic that slowed things down. How do you look for opportunities like this?
Yeah, well, first of all, you can get my email address or my cell phone number from Temple, and so we can have a more detailed one-on-one talk. I don't want to bore everybody else on here who may not care about sports or want to know like all the intricate details. But I'll quickly say that, similar to you, it's something I always wanted to do. David mentioned earlier muting the television and practicing at home. I did that since I was about age 10. I worked at KCR, college radio. The games were not live. I just took an old-fashioned cassette tape and a pair of headphones, and I recorded into the cassette tape. And then I went in at 4:00 in the morning and I put the cassette tape into KCR and pressed play. And then when the commercial breaks, I just pressed a button for some sort of public service announcement. I know nobody was listening. I didn't care. I wasn't very good back then. I just needed to get repetition. So yeah, I'll be very happy to go into like details with you, but opportunity that you get, or whether it's high school, semi-pro, whether it's at SDSU, every opportunity is going to make you better. And I think that those initial opportunities, they may not be the glamorous job that you're seeking right away or long-term, but let's face it, it takes a while before so you can make mistakes when hardly anyone's listening, and you don't worry about the self-doubt as much because not as many people are listening. And then you get really good at those. And then the higher up you get to more glamorous events, the easier it actually becomes. There's so much more information that gets provided. There's so much more background that's easier to find. The work gets easier and easier the higher up you move up the sports chain. But we'll connect and I'll give you some more stuff.
Thank you. That was great advice. Yeah, and I think you and David have mentioned it. Practice by yourself. I think I've been doing that since I was a kid, playing FIFA. I like calling games, and like you said, it's easier to call games on the big spectrum, a World Cup compared to a small team from your town. You don't really know the players, and those players haven't even got experience. But yeah, I appreciate your help, and yeah, can't wait to connect.
And I think that advice goes for everything. If you're going to say I'm a broadcaster or a play-by-play, but then you haven't done it and you're not practicing it and you can't share a reel, you can't say, oh, well, I want to do content design, and then you don't have a link on a portfolio, you just have a paper resume. So I think thinking about how you can actually demonstrate that
Yeah,
you
and I
can
think
do
in
what you're claiming.
the new information age and how easy it is, like you said earlier, to go on YouTube and learn a skill. I just don't think a company anymore is going to pay you to take you from absolute scratch to like proficient. I think you have to come in, with some skills that you've learned on your own, and then of course, you can get better, and the company can help get you to the next level. But I agree. I think it's so easy to go online and learn these skills, or to create demo tapes and things like that. That it's kind of the barrier of entry now, I think, for most entry level jobs.
So I'll admit content design is different because you can't learn it anywhere. And everyone we hire, like when I got hired, I had never done it before. All the interns we hired, they've never done it before. They don't teach it in school. I look at candidates from design schools, and they're designers. They're not content designers. It's super different. If you're not good with written language and information hierarchy, like if there's any proper journalism majors in here, like I invert pyramid all day long. Like inverted pyramid totally applies to like what goes on in this space. So yeah, I know that's a bit different and probably not the same as most industries, but the folks we're going after, like I said, probably have backgrounds in print journalism. We sort of like just, traditional long form writing. What we look for to come into the tech world is a more collaborative spirit. In journalism, you're very married to your byline. Like, these are my words. This is the story that I crafted. Design's a little bit different. Like I mentioned, we're working with researchers, visual designers, product designers, and it feels super collaborative. And you're just in the moment, and you're just, all aligned on the same problem. And there's a design process that we all go through together. So being able to find that collaborative spirit, again, that hustle, that's sort of the difference between like I'm a journalist and I'm a content designer, just being able to make that connection. But I know that's an anomaly and not, probably super common.
Yeah, if you want to be a heart surgeon, please don't fake it till you make it and do heart surgery on your friend.
Giselle, what are some of the skills, like when you're looking for interns, that you kind of expect them to have?
I just need them to be good writers. That's the main thing that I look for. Because like I said, there's like this big gap between SEO people and content, and 50% of SEO is content. So learning the Google algorithms and what Google really looks for when they're rating their content. But I just need someone that knows how to write and understands good content, and then I can teach the SEO stuff.
Yeah, I'm just so grateful that I was a journalism major, and that I, kind of grew up liking to write and was decent at it. Because even in my role today, like, I mean, just writing emails to clients or pushing back on a client, or just seeing how important it is to articulate your words when you're trying to get a point across, you're trying to adjust strategy. You guys are in a really good spot, because it's a skill set that I don't think a majority of people have. And if you can, in a very clean, concise way, have a way that you can articulate your thoughts when it comes to your ideas, when it comes to what you want with a raise or why you deserve a raise in the future. Like, it's such a huge skill that is so awesome to have, for sure.
I'm going to take that to a weird place. So that skill of being able to advocate for yourself, it's kind of a masculine skill. And as a young woman entering the workforce, it can feel really uncomfortable and feel wrong to be so assertive, but it's very, very true. Being able to speak up for yourself that way and advocate for yourself that way, once you get sort of comfortable communicating and being able to back up your ask with those facts and those metrics, total skill. But that is how careers happen.
Yeah. I think too, to add on that, like we're not taught how to have uncomfortable conversations. Like our parents don't teach us how to have these uncomfortable conversations. Your school doesn't, college doesn't. And asking for a $10,000 raise is kind of awkward, kind of uncomfortable. What if your boss gets mad at you? What if he says, "How dare you?" And it's yeah, I totally agree. It's like a skill that you have to like. You don't get better at it unless you just like break through that awkwardness or that tension. But it's yeah, it's definitely tough to break through for sure.
I have a question, which kind of goes up with what we're talking about. So, hi, my name is Olivia. I'm a journalism major and also minoring in marketing. So I'm applying for jobs right now, and a lot of the questions that I get are like, what are your minimum salary? And as someone that is, a senior and I've never really had a full-time job, what should I put on there? And then hopefully as I get on further on into the hiring process, they'll ask you like, oh, what's your base? Or like, how do you negotiate your salary? Especially in this time of the pandemic where I feel like I should just take any job that I can get.
I'll start. So I always negotiate my salary. The first thing that I would say is research how much the salary is for the job that you're applying for. And don't think that you don't deserve that because you're just graduating, because that's not true. There's companies that are going to lowball you and you can't really let them do that. But also be assertive. So I'm pretty assertive as it is. So when they try to lowball me, I know exactly how much they should be paying me, whether, I have like all the skills that they want, or I have like 80% of what they want. So I would say so coming into my new job, again, I've only been there for 2 months. They offered me a salary and I didn't accept it because I didn't think it was enough for me to leave the job at Experian. So I told them, hey, like, thanks for the offer, but I really want to be at this point right now. And if that's not something that you can do, then thank you for the conversation. But, they came back 2 hours later and like, okay, we accept that. So I think it's just not being afraid of having that conversation and really just asserting yourself, because in a way, they're more desperate than you are. Like, you think that you're in a position where you have to take whatever you want. That's not the case. It's so hard to hire. And it's the talent out there. To get good talent is hard. And so you're actually in a choosing position rather than a begging position. And so that's something that you don't really understand until you're on the other side of the hiring part. So I would say research how much a normal salary is for that position and go for it. Like, don't be afraid. If they want to lowball you 10K, like, say no.
I think it's true too to look at the total comp plan. We give 4 weeks vacation, for instance. So, let's say we pay 65,000, but somebody else pays 70, but they only give you 2 weeks vacation. Well, then technically the $68,000 job, or whatever I just said, technically the one with the more vacation is a better comp plan. So I think you have to consider the vacation, you have to consider medical, any allowances or any, reimbursements they give you, all those different things kind of matter as well. So I like to say, look at the full picture to kind of understand what you're getting. But I totally agree with what Gissel said. It's not awkward to say like, hey, like, thank you so much for asking. I did some research and it looks like anywhere from 50 to 55 is pretty standard in this role for San Diego. So I'd definitely be looking for that. You will never be punished for saying something like that. And also you'll never be punished for asking for more. If they can't do it, they can't do it. But I've never said, again, I think there's this weird fear of like, how dare you ask for an extra 5,000 or whatever. And like, I could speak from my experience. I actually end up respecting the person more rather than get angry that they fought for themselves, like Gissel said.
Yeah, they won't take the job offer away. It almost seems like that's the fear. If you ask for more, then they're like, never mind.
Right.
That's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And I think it's really important, like what Gissel and David, doing research to figure out how much the position is worth. And then that's the amount that you put out there. You shouldn't be hard to find about what that position is.
And I'll share this with you because you guys are my San Diego State, people. If you say my range is from 65 to 75, they're going to offer you 65. Just say no.
And I could tell you as an employee of SDSU, if you're ever applying for like a state job, all those salaries are public record. So you can go on and see. So I knew coming in what everybody made. So it was very easy for me to know what I'm going to request to get me here. So that's just another thing. Are there more questions? Got it. Just about 10 more minutes of their time.
Hey, Temple, I would make a comment. I wanted to, first of all, thank you for inviting me. I'm a director of a different school here. You presenters were just awesome. And I just want to tell you, students, you're so lucky to get this. I'm going to try to implement this in my school too, but just thank you.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Any other questions? I've got notes. I mean, I can ask more questions.
The other thing that I'll add is that your classmates right now are some of your best resources, or someone who was in your class last semester, someone who is 1 year into the job market is some of the best resources that you're going to have. My friends to this day, I have so many friends from San Diego State, even though I don't live near any of them, who worked with me at the Daily Aztec, who were journalism majors, most of whom did not stay in journalism. But that's where I learned about job opportunities. That's where I was able to ask that uncomfortable question. Hey, how much did you make? Or do you know how much the starting salary is for this, that you can have a little bit of an idea? Those are the people who might become an entrepreneur and start a company like David. And hey, David's my friend from college. Remember me? I sat next to you. Are you hiring? So always stay in touch with all of your classmates, because those are going to be some of your best resources for finding jobs, for finding information about jobs, and maybe even being able to collaborate in the future about some type of job.
Yeah, and one thing I don't think people do enough of is reach out to people that are in the position that they would love, or their dream job, and say, can I just pick your brain for 15 minutes? Like, I would love to be where you're at one day. I just want to get some advice. I mean, I think Juan, you having a chat with Joshua, that might build a relationship over the next few years, and Josh may need some help one day for a game, and he may, pay you some money to help him out. Like those things just start to happen if you put yourself out there. So I remember, you may know him, Josh, but Spiro Ditas was a former, play-by-play of the Lakers, and now he's on NFL and CBS, but he was a fellow Greek. And I'm like, hey, I'm a Greek, you're a Greek, I'm at San Diego State. I would love to be where you're at one day. Can I pick your brain for 10 to 15 minutes? And it built a great friendship and a, decade-long conversation, essentially, just from a LinkedIn reach out. So you assume like they're busy, there's no way they're going to have time. But everybody's assuming that. So therefore they do have a little bit of time to help you out. So I would definitely leverage that as much as you can, for sure.
Yeah, that sort of mentorship will be super valuable, even when you already have a job. Like me, my mentor right now is a director of content design at a Fortune 100 company. Like, I don't work for this person, but I reached out to them. I was like, hey, like, let's be friends. Like, can we talk on a monthly basis? Like, I would just love to learn from you. So that advice, I think, is great advice, regardless of where you are in your career.
Do you have advice on how to reach out to somebody, or any specific? So you see them on LinkedIn. Obviously, like the common connection here is SDSU. So you can, look through SDSU connections is one in. But any other sort of thoughts on, what's a really great way to just make that initial, connection?
I feel like LinkedIn is great, and know that it's like innately flattering. When you ask someone for advice, like, they're not going to be like, I'm busy. They're going to be like, me, and like want to talk to you. So it's going to go well, probably.
It's always an ego boost. I host a podcast, and kind of my idea is to like reach out to CMOs at the Nikes and the Fortune 100 companies, like Patricia said, just to like build a rapport and build and just learn from them. And I did the same thing you guys will probably do too. I hop on LinkedIn like, hey, I love what you do. I think you're really smart. I checked out that Ad a Week article that you were quoted in. I totally agree with that statement, and would love to, have you on the show or pick your brain for 15 minutes. And, like it's a numbers game. I think not everybody's going to check their LinkedIn or anything like that. But if you do enough of them and you reach out to some of the people in your seat, then you'll definitely get people replying for sure.
You can also use mutual connections. So for example, I had someone working for me who wanted to get more into SEO copywriting. And so he asked me if I could introduce him to one of the top writers at Bankrate and Lending Tree. So I made that connection with those two. And so now they're having like a mentorship thing going on. So I think utilizing also mutual connections if you can.
I saw that Tyler had the question about after you do that informational interview, how do you maintain that relationship? The same way that you maintain any type of friendship relationship, or, care about them as much as you want them to care about you. And I think you can learn a lot by following someone who you want to be similar to them with what their career is, and compliment them. Flattery goes everywhere, no matter who you are, about the work that they did. And, just remind them, hey, in case you ever need someone to help you with the research on this, in case you ever guys are looking to hire, I'm available, or something like that. But again, it's the relationship that you have professionally shouldn't be all that different than, obviously you have to draw the line. But, just think of it as how you maintain a good friendship. It's the same way.
I will share too that I had interviews with Kobe Bryant. I had a reel. I had I did over 150 podcasts. I had probably 21 play-by-plays underneath my belt, and it took me 6 months to find a job. And I was like, I think that the problem I had was I applied to 150 different stations across the nation. I had my demo reel and I had my packet, and I picked the best paper. But if I could do it all over again, I would have focused on, like I said earlier, 10 or 12, really would have researched, try to hop on calls, email those people. But ultimately, I think my resume just ended up on a desk and got thrown out at some point. So just a quick story. It was a frustrating process, because I felt like I was ready, but it took that relationship, like Josh said, to finally get me my first opportunity.
Awesome. Yeah. And I'll follow up, Tyler, just also with the idea of, again, going back to Patricia, is flattery. Once you make a connection, if you see, David launches some new campaign next month because you're following him, just a message of, hey, that was a really cool commercial you all did, or whatever. So it's just more flattery is a good way to just sort of maintain, I find, that relationship. So I'm always trying to send messages to people I'm connected with of just, hey, I saw you did that. Really love it. Keep up the great work. And then maybe one day it's followed up with, oh, I'd love, if we could work together or something like that. But yeah, maintaining that relationship so that second time you talk to them isn't just for a job request. Any other questions? Let's see. Got 5 minutes left. So if we want to do one more question, we can. I'll ask, what's something you all are excited about, either in your job or like looking ahead in the next few months or few years, besides just, going to restaurants and things like that again?
I'm excited that I'll be able to broadcast a game with fans in the stands again soon, where you can actually hear the roar of the crowd. I always knew that this is what I wanted to do, and I always knew that I was very fortunate to be able to do it. And it got taken away, as a lot of people had a lot of things taken away. And I don't think I needed a pandemic to remind me of that I enjoyed doing something, but I'm looking forward to being able to, just hear the buzz of a crowd, whether that's at a sporting event or a concert or a noisy, busy restaurant on a Friday night, whatever. All of those things are going to be wonderful.
I'm excited to continue working from home. I'm glad that I don't have to go back to an office, but I have the option to do so if I want to. It really changed the whole workforce of everything. And yeah, I'm excited to have a better work-life balance.
Yeah, I'm with Giselle. I like having things delivered to me. Like I'm not, and I'm like an outdoorsy person anyway, so I haven't had to stop any of my hobbies because they were all like deemed safe. So I'm digging this life. What I'm most excited for, I'm doing some unprecedented stuff for content design at Intuit. So I'm excited for what that means for the next year. God, it's so weird to talk about because it's such a weird space that no one knows anything about and like probably doesn't care. It's like, I'm systemizing centralized design for durable components. Like, what did you just say? But I'm doing stuff that I'm excited about that has a lot to do with the importance of language within software and scaling that language in a way that will benefit our engineering organization. So being able to make the connection between the written words on the screen and business bottom dollars. So I'm excited to like take the craft of journalism and turn it into like a, you know, big business conversation.
Yeah, I think in my world, kind of marketing and digital, I keep on saying that COVID really has fast forwarded the digital revolution 5 years into the future. In my opinion, for a quick example, I talked to the CMO of Jersey Mike's, the sub shop, and before the pandemic, 10% of their revenue was from Grubhub, like, you know, deliveries, Postmates type thing. Overnight, it went to 90%. So if they didn't have that technology and that digital arm that they invested in before COVID, they would have been potentially out of business. So I think every business, every Fortune 500 company is looking inward and saying, do we have a digital and e-com strategy, a social strategy? Because overnight, as we saw with this Black Swan event that was COVID, all the traditional marketing levers were pulled away, like conferences and billboards and print and all these different things that people just weren't utilizing as much because they were stuck at home. The only way you can reach your consumer was through social media or was through digital platforms. So I'm excited for the future of just digital marketing because I think everybody's finally, I've been screaming from the rooftops for 10 years, but finally people are saying, okay, let's make sure we have a social strategy or we're going to be probably out of business in the next 5 years. So
Definitely been a great time to be in tech.
yeah.
You guys are not, you're journalism majors and not promoting journalism careers, but that's actually why you're here, is to show that regardless of your major within our school, actually all of these careers are possible. Yeah, David.
Journalism has changed, right? Like I'm sure Juan, you know, you're younger and love sports. Like I'm sure you get all your sports highlights on Bleacher Report or House of Highlights over ESPN News. And when Josh and I were coming up, like I had ESPN News on all the time to make sure I was up to date. So it's the journalism is changing where, you know, you can report on a story, but it may be a YouTube vlog opposed to a Dateline NBC package.
Yeah.
Yeah, my journalism major is what got me a job at Experience. So I'm thankful for that.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for joining. This was such a great panel. I really appreciate that you took the time out of your day to come to speak to some of the students. Such great advice. Like literally, you know, not lying. I'm over here taking notes because I think you have such great things to say. Thanks for everybody who came. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.